The rain had a way of softening everything, the sound of the city, the anger of traffic, even the loneliness that hung between people who had forgotten how to look up. Through the misted glass of the small coffee shop on 8th and Willow, the neon reflections danced like fireflies on puddles, and a woman sat by the window, clutching a paper cup with both hands as if it could warm more than just her skin. Her name was Nora Bennett. 36 years old, quiet, reliable, invisible in all the ways that life teaches you to be when dreams cost more than rent. She wore a plain grey jacket and black sneakers that had lost their shine long ago. Her dark hair was tied in a messy bun, a few strands sticking to her damp forehead. She had worked the closing shift at the downtown hospital, mopping endless hallways that smelled of disinfectant and fading hope. But tonight, for reasons she couldn't quite explain, she had said yes to something new, a date. Before we dive into her story, if you believe that love can find you even when you've stopped looking, if you believe that ordinary people carry extraordinary strength, then please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope tonight, and subscribe to our channel. Because stories like this remind us that sometimes, the light we're waiting for has been walking beside us all along. Nora had met him online. His name was Liam Hart, a paramedic who'd once messaged her after she commented on a local volunteer page about hospital cleanups. His words had been simple, not rehearsed or polished. "I see you work the night shifts too. Maybe one day we'll share a cup of coffee at sunrise." She had smiled then, alone in her small apartment, not because it was romantic, but because it felt kind. Weeks passed, and their messages became her quiet joy, stolen between lunch breaks, folded between exhaustion and duty. Liam was patient, funny in a soft way, never demanding. He asked about her dreams, not her appearance. He told her he admired how she kept showing up, even when the world didn't see her. And so tonight, when he'd asked her to meet him in person at Bean and Willow, she almost said no. Almost. But something inside her, a small whisper she hadn't heard in years, said go. Now, as she waited, watching the rain trail down the glass, she wondered if she'd made a mistake. People didn't look twice at women like her. She wasn't glamorous, didn't wear makeup often, didn't have the easy confidence that made others glow. She was the kind of person who faded into the background, necessary, dependable, unseen. The doorbell jingled, breaking her thoughts. A tall man walked in, shaking off his umbrella. He was wearing a dark blue jacket, his hair tousled from the wind, his expression both focused and gentle, the kind of face that had seen pain but hadn't hardened because of it. His eyes scanned the cafe, and when they landed on her, he smiled. It wasn't a dazzling smile, but something far better, a real one. "Nora," he asked, approaching with a warmth that made her forget how tired she was. "Liam," she breathed, standing too quickly and nearly spilling her coffee. He chuckled softly. "It's good to finally meet you." They sat, the city humming outside like a living thing. At first, the conversation was awkward. She apologized for her uniform, for the faint scent of antiseptic she couldn't wash off, for her hair that had frizzed in the rain. But Liam only listened, leaning forward with an expression of quiet admiration. "You look like someone who's had a long day," he said gently. "And that's not an apology, that's proof you show up." Nora blinked, unsure how to respond. Compliments weren't part of her world. Not like this. He told her stories about his ambulance shifts, the chaos, the exhaustion, the strange peace that came when saving someone's life. "You learn to notice small things," he said. "Like how someone's breathing steadies when they know they're not alone." She nodded. "I clean those halls after you've been there," she said softly. "The ER. Sometimes I see the traces, a blanket, a coffee cup, a smear of blood someone forgot to wipe. I always wonder if the person made it." Liam's gaze softened. "They remember the people who stay. Trust me." The rest of the evening unfolded like a slow exhale. They talked about books, favorite meals, and childhood memories. Nora found herself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in months. The world outside could have disappeared, and she wouldn't have noticed. When the barista finally announced closing time, Nora felt that old ache of endings she knew too well. She stood, fumbling for her bag, but Liam spoke first. "Hey," he said, handing her his umbrella. "It's still pouring. Take this." She shook her head. "You'll get soaked. I've got another in the car. Besides," he smiled, "I'm a paramedic. I can handle a little rain." She hesitated, then took it. Their fingers brushed, brief but electric. Outside, the night smelled of rain and earth. The streetlight shimmered on the wet pavement, reflecting the soft rhythm of new beginnings. Nora turned to thank him again, but he was already halfway to his car, waving back at her with that same quiet grin. When she got home, the umbrella still dripped by her door, and her heart ached in the best way. For the first time in years, she didn't dread the morning. The next day at work, the hospital hallway seemed less grey. The same hum of machines, the same fluorescent lights, but something in Nora had shifted. Her co-workers noticed too, the slight curve of her smile, the light in her eyes. "Someone's got a secret," joked Pam, the older nurse who'd been her quiet friend for years. Nora laughed it off. "It's just a good day," she said, but inside she felt like her heart had remembered how to move. On her break, she checked her phone. A message from Liam. "You made it home safe? Hope the umbrella didn't have a curse. Some of my stuff's been through weird nights." She smiled, typing back, "No curses. Just a little magic." They started talking every evening. Sometimes about nothing, the weather, a new sandwich at the cafe, and sometimes about everything, their parents, regrets, hopes that never had space to grow. Nora learned that Liam had once wanted to become a teacher, but after his mother passed away, he joined the ambulance service to support his younger sister. "It's funny," he said one night over the phone, his voice low and warm. "We save lives every day, but it's the small moments that save us." "What do you mean?" "Like when someone holds your hand after a long shift. Or when you see someone smile for real. You start believing again that all this showing up matters." That sentence stayed with her. All this showing up matters. 2 weeks later, they met again. Same cafe, different weather. The rain had been replaced by early spring sunlight that poured through the windows like forgiveness. Nora had finished her morning shift and changed into a light blue blouse she hadn't worn in years. It wasn't new, but it made her feel like someone who still had a future waiting. When Liam saw her, he froze for half a second, then grinned. "You look," he paused, searching for words that didn't sound rehearsed. "You look like sunshine finally remembered your name." Nora blushed, laughing. "That's terribly poetic for a paramedic." He shrugged, sipping his coffee. "Occupational hazard. We see a lot of nights, so we notice when morning shows up." They talked for hours, until the lunch crowd faded and only the hum of the espresso machine remained. He told her he'd been reading a book she mentioned about second chances. She told him she'd started painting again on weekends, something she'd stopped after her father's passing years ago. "You paint?" he asked, eyes lighting up. "I used to. Nothing serious. Just quiet things. Windows, clouds, people I never knew." "That's beautiful," he said simply, and she knew he meant it. When they stepped outside, the city glowed with the kind of warmth that only comes after long rain. He walked her halfway to the bus stop, not because he had to, but because it felt right. Before they parted, he said softly, "Can I see you again?" And she, for once, didn't hesitate. Yes. That night, back in her apartment, Nora looked around her small living room, the peeling paint, the second-hand couch, the photo of her parents on the wall. For years, it had been just a place to rest her tired body. But now, for the first time, it felt like something else, a beginning. She sat by the window with a sketchbook she hadn't opened in ages. She began to draw a rainy city, a woman beneath an umbrella, and a man walking toward her with a smile that made the world slow down. When she finished, she wrote beneath it, "Some storms don't ruin you. They introduce you to someone who helps you see the light." Outside, the rain began again, soft and steady, as if the city itself was blessing her small rediscovery of hope. And for the first time in a long while, Nora Bennett believed that maybe, just maybe, her story was finally changing. If you believe that real love isn't about perfection, but about two people seeing each other as they are and choosing to stay anyway, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who's lost faith in gentle love, and subscribe to our channel. Because tonight's story reminds us that sometimes, what saves us isn't the grand gesture, it's the quiet presence that says, "I'm here." The weeks that followed felt like borrowed sunlight. Nora's world, once grey and predictable, began to hum with small, almost invisible joys. Coffee that tasted sweeter. Music that sounded fuller. The laughter of strangers she actually noticed. Liam was part of that, not as a savior, not as a whirlwind romance that swept her off her feet, but as a steady, grounding warmth. He texted her good mornings, dropped by the hospital with coffee during her break, and once even waited outside her building at midnight just to walk her home after a double shift. "Don't you ever sleep?" she teased him that night, smiling at the ridiculousness of it all. He grinned. "Sleep's overrated. You can sleep when you're happy." "Is that a medical recommendation, Mr. Paramedic?" "Professional advice," he replied, mock serious. "Happiness before rest." She laughed, that soft, melodic kind of laugh that people don't plan. It wasn't long before Liam met Pam, her closest friend at work. Pam was protective, the kind of woman who had seen life's edges and still managed to find humor in them. When Liam stopped by the hospital cafeteria one afternoon, Pam watched him closely, leaning across the table as soon as he left to grab napkins. "He's handsome," she said. "And he looks at you like you're the most important person in the room." "Pam," Nora warned, rolling her eyes. "I'm serious. Just be careful, all right? You've got a heart that still believes in people. That's rare. Protect it." Nora nodded, smiling softly. But deep down, she knew Pam was right. For years, she'd built walls made of fatigue and fear. Liam was the first person to make her want to open a door again. One Thursday evening, Liam asked her to join him at a small community event, a health awareness fair he volunteered at. The venue was an old library that had been converted into a public hall, filled with booths, children's laughter, and the smell of fresh popcorn. Nora hesitated when she saw the crowd. "I'm not great with people," she admitted quietly. Liam looked at her, his tone gentle but firm. "You don't need to be great. You just need to be there. Sometimes that's enough." She followed him in, trying not to shrink under the weight of self-consciousness. But to her surprise, the people were kind. Volunteers offered her cookies, children ran between tables with balloons, and Liam moved among them like someone who belonged everywhere. When he introduced her, "This is Nora. She works at the hospital. She's incredible." Something inside her loosened. Not because of the words, but because of the way he said them, with genuine pride. Later that night, as they packed up flyers and folded tables, a woman from Liam's team leaned in with a teasing grin. "So this is the Nora we've heard about." Liam laughed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I might have mentioned her once or twice." Nora felt her cheeks warm, and the woman winked at her. "He doesn't shut up about you. You've made quite an impression." For someone who'd spent most of her life unseen, those words felt like sunlight. Their relationship unfolded slowly, dinners after shifts, long walks through the city, late-night calls where neither wanted to hang up first. Nora began painting again, sometimes sending Liam photos of unfinished canvases. He always found something to praise, never pushing, always encouraging. Once, she painted a quiet street under rainlight, a single figure walking with an umbrella. Liam texted, "That's how I see you. Always walking through storms, still shining. But no matter how soft the light, shadows always wait at the edges." One Friday evening, Liam invited her to a small rooftop dinner he'd arranged. The city below glittered with thousands of tiny stories, and the wind carried the scent of jasmine and rain. "I thought you could use a night away from hospital lights," he said, laying out take-out boxes of pasta and 2 paper cups of cheap wine. She laughed. "Fancy." "The fanciest," he replied. They talked about silly things, worse jobs, dream vacations, their mutual hatred of Mondays. But when she asked him about his family, a subtle shift passed through his expression. "My dad's gone," he said quietly. "Cancer. My sister, Emily, lives upstate. We don't talk much these days." "Why not?" He hesitated, eyes fixed on the skyline. "Sometimes, when you spend your life saving others, you forget how to save the people closest to you." Nora reached out, gently touching his hand. "Then maybe it's time you let someone save you for once." He looked at her, really looked, and for a moment, the world seemed to pause. They kissed under the city's quiet pulse, and it wasn't the kind of kiss that demanded. It was the kind that promised. From that night, they began to share more time, more truths, more dreams. Liam would stop by her apartment on his nights off. Sometimes they cooked together, sometimes they sat in silence, just existing side by side. One rainy morning, Nora woke to find a small note taped to her fridge. "For all the mornings you thought you'd never matter to someone, you do. L." Her throat tightened as she read it. But life, as always, is not without interruptions. One afternoon, Nora arrived at work to find the hospital buzzing with tension. An ambulance had been in a major collision on the freeway, one of their own team's. The name hit her like a jolt when she overheard it in the staff room, Liam Hart. Her hands trembled as she ran to the ER. The air smelled of antiseptic and panic. Nurses whispered, orderlies rushed, and the world narrowed to the sound of a stretcher being wheeled in. Then she saw him, bruised, conscious, but pale. Their eyes met, and relief flooded her body so sharply she nearly lost balance. "Hey," he croaked, forcing a grin. "Told you, paramedics can handle a little rain." Her tears broke free. "You idiot." He laughed weakly, wincing. "Noted." No more car chases. The doctors ushered her back, but later that night, when visiting hours were over, she sneaked in with a thermos of soup and sat beside him until dawn. He slept, breathing steadily, and she realized how much space he'd filled in her life, quietly, completely. Liam recovered over the next few weeks. The accident had left him limping slightly, but his spirit, stubborn as always, never dimmed. "I was thinking," he said one evening as they sat in her kitchen, the smell of tomato soup filling the air, "about what really matters. You ever notice how we keep waiting for life to start, but it's already happening in these small moments?" She nodded. "I used to think I had to do something big to make my life mean something. But maybe it's enough to just be kind. Be real." He smiled. "Exactly. You've got that figured out better than most." But even amidst the joy, Nora noticed small changes. Liam sometimes grew distant, his phone buzzing with messages he didn't answer around her. Once, she caught him standing by her window late at night, staring at the city lights with an unreadable expression. "You okay?" she asked. He smiled, too quickly. "Yeah. Just thinking." She wanted to believe him. She always wanted to believe the best in people. One evening, as she left work, she saw him waiting outside, leaning against his car, rain beginning to fall again. "I have to tell you something," he said quietly. His voice wasn't like before, or it carried weight. Nora's heart skipped. "What is it?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "Not tonight. You've had a long day. Let's just have dinner, okay?" She nodded, trying to hide the unease curling in her chest. Dinner was quiet. They talked, but the rhythm was off, the easy flow replaced by pauses that felt too long. When she reached for his hand, he squeezed it, but there was something distant behind his touch. As they walked home under a single umbrella, the silence between them felt louder than the rain. When they reached her building, he lingered by the steps. "Liam," she said softly, "whatever it is, you can tell me." He looked at her, eyes filled with something like regret. "You believe in second chances, right?" "Of course." He exhaled. "Then I hope, when I tell you what I need to tell you, you'll still believe that." And before she could ask, he kissed her forehead, turned, and disappeared into the rain. That night, Nora sat by the window, watching the city blur under the storm. The umbrella, the same one he'd given her that first night, leaned against the wall, dripping faintly. Something was changing. She could feel it. But what she didn't know yet was that this was the storm that would test everything, her trust, her love, and the quiet strength she'd spent her whole life building. And sometimes, before light returns, life asks if you truly know what love costs. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes love is only for the lucky, and subscribe to our channel. Because Nora's journey reminds us that the heart's greatest lesson is not how to find love, but how to keep believing in it when it's tested. If you believe that love means seeing someone not only for who they are, but for what they've survived, then please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who still believes in second chances, and subscribe to our channel. Because what you're about to hear is a story about honesty, forgiveness, and the kind of courage that grows in silence. Autumn had come softly to the city. The first golden leaves clung to the edges of the sidewalks, and the air carried that quiet promise of change, gentle yet certain. For Nora, these weeks felt like pages of a book she had waited years to open. Her mornings began with laughter now. Liam would text her silly photos of his breakfast disasters, burnt toast, coffee spills, half-done pancakes shaped vaguely like hearts. She'd send him her coffee shop selfies in return, eyes bright despite the early shifts. They weren't grand gestures, just small, ordinary moments that somehow felt extraordinary. She'd grown used to finding him waiting outside after her evening shifts. Sometimes he'd have a cup of hot chocolate, sometimes just that easy smile that always seemed to find her in the crowd. They'd walk to the park nearby, sit by the fountain, and talk about everything and nothing. And yet, beneath the rhythm of those days, a faint unease began to hum in the background. It wasn't anything obvious, not at first. Just the way Liam's eyes would cloud over when she asked about his work. The way he changed the subject when she asked about his family. Once, when his phone rang during dinner, he stepped outside to answer, and when he came back, his smile was there, but his hands trembled slightly as he lifted his coffee. Nora told herself not to read too much into it. Everyone had shadows. Everyone had things they weren't ready to say out loud. But sometimes, silence says more than words ever could. One night, as rain fell like soft music on the glass, they sat by the diner window, the same booth where they'd first met. The waitress, who now knew them by name, refilled their mugs with a smile before walking away. "I think this place has become ours," Liam said, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. Nora smiled. "Then it's officially sacred." He laughed softly, but his eyes were distant. "What is it?" she asked gently. He hesitated, then said, "Do you ever feel like you're building something beautiful, but you're afraid it's built on borrowed time?" Her hand paused mid-air, holding the spoon. What do you mean? He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Just, sometimes I feel like life gives you something good, and you don't know how long it'll last. Nora tilted her head. Are you sick? She whispered. Liam looked startled. No, nothing like that. He reached for her hand, squeezing it reassuringly. I'm okay. I have things I should have told you. Her stomach fluttered with unease. But he didn't go on. Instead, he smiled again, that same soft, deflecting smile, and said, Not tonight. I don't want to ruin this. And so, she let it go. But something in his tone stayed with her. A week later, Nora was closing up the cafe when her coworker Emily called out, Hey, Nora. There's someone asking for you outside. She stepped out, expecting Liam, but found a woman instead. Mid-30s, polished, wearing a long grey coat and an expression that was almost too calm. Are you Nora? The woman asked. Yes, can I help you? The woman hesitated, studying her. I'm sorry for showing up like this. My name is Claire Hale. The last name hit her like a cold wind. Hale. Liam's last name. I think we should talk, Claire said quietly. They sat at one of the outdoor tables, the streetlights flickering above them. I don't mean to cause trouble, Claire began. Liam and we were married. Technically, we still are. The words felt like glass shattering in Nora's chest. We're married, she echoed, her voice barely there. We separated last year, Claire said. He moved out, and I thought we were done. But then my lawyer called last week. He never filed the papers. Nora felt dizzy. I don't understand. I didn't either, Claire said softly. But I found your name. He mentioned you once, by accident, when we met to discuss our finances. Said your name like it meant something. The silence stretched between them. Claire's tone softened. I don't know what his reasons are, Nora. But if he's with you, I think you deserve the truth. Nora didn't remember walking home that night. The city around her blurred into streaks of light and rain. She replayed every moment, every hesitation, every look in his eyes. Her heart didn't know which hurt more, the lie itself or the fact that he hadn't trusted her enough to tell her. When she reached her apartment, her phone buzzed. Liam, can I see you tomorrow? There's something I need to tell you. She stared at the message for a long time, her hands trembling. Then she typed back. Tomorrow's too late. The next morning, Liam showed up anyway. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, rain on his jacket. I was going to tell you, he said before she could speak. I swear, Nora. I was going to tell you everything. Then why didn't you? She asked quietly. He swallowed hard. Because I thought I'd lose you. You already did. Her words made him flinch, but he didn't look away. I left that marriage over a year ago, he said. Claire and we were over long before we signed anything. We stayed married because her father was sick and she needed health insurance. It was complicated. But I should have told you. I was a coward. Nora turned away, tears threatening to spill. Do you have any idea what that felt like? To have someone show up at my job and tell me I'm just the next chapter in someone else's unfinished story. Liam's voice cracked. You're not a chapter, Nora. You're the reason I started writing again. The sincerity in his tone broke something open inside her. But trust, once cracked, doesn't mend easily. Maybe you mean that, she said, but right now, I don't know who you are. Liam took a step closer, his voice barely above a whisper. Then let me show you. Not with words, but with what I do next. And then he left. Days passed. Nora worked in silence, moving through her shifts like a ghost. Emily tried to make her laugh, but the sound wouldn't come. The smell of coffee, once comforting, now made her ache with memory. One evening, as she walked home, she passed the small community art center by the river. A new exhibit banner hung above the entrance, Stories in Light, photographs by Liam Hale. Her breath caught. She didn't know he'd gone back to photography. Something, curiosity, longing, maybe hope, pulled her inside. The gallery was small, quiet, the air smelling faintly of rain and wood polish. Each photo was framed simply, with a small handwritten note beneath. One photo stopped her cold. It was of the diner window, soft light, empty seats, a reflection of the city behind it. Beneath it, the note read, "The place where I learned that Grace wears work clothes and smells faintly of coffee." She stepped closer. Tears blurred her vision. He hadn't photographed her, but somehow, she was everywhere, in the colors, the light, the stillness. A voice came from behind her. "I didn't expect you'd come." She turned. Liam stood there, nervous, hands in his pockets. "I didn't do this for forgiveness," he said. "I did it because I needed to show the truth I was too afraid to say. You taught me that honesty isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, even when it's hard." Nora looked at him, really looked. The man who had lied, yes, but also the man who had cooked her soup when she was sick, who had waited in the rain, who had listened when no one else did. "You hurt me," she said softly. "I know." His voice broke. "And I'll spend every day proving I'm not that man anymore." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Nora reached out, fingers brushing his. "Don't prove it," she whispered. "Just live it." He nodded, eyes glistening. Outside, the rain had stopped. The city lights shimmered against the river like a promise renewed. If this story reminded you that love isn't about perfection but about choosing honesty, even when it hurts, then please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to our channel. Because sometimes, the greatest light shines not from what we hide, but from what we finally dare to show. If you believe that love is often less about fireworks and more about showing up, day after day, in ways both big and small, then please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who's learning to trust again, and subscribe to our channel. Because tonight, we witness a love that heals slowly, quietly, and beautifully. The days after the gallery visit were slow, gentle, and full of unspoken questions. Nora didn't know if she was ready to call Liam, and he, in turn, respected the space she needed, resisting the urge to text incessantly. It was an unusual rhythm for both of them. The silence was heavy, yet somehow safe. Neither tried to force conversation, to push forgiveness into a tidy package. Instead, they allowed each other the room to breathe, a luxury neither had often felt in the storm of life. Nora began noticing small things again, the way her own apartment smelled in the morning when the sunlight touched the blinds, the way her coffee cup warmed her hands like a steady heartbeat, the way the city seemed softer when she paused to watch the rain drip off neon signs. She'd replay Liam's words from the gallery over and over. "You taught me that honesty isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, even when it's hard." For days, she stayed with that sentence like a mantra, letting it settle. One afternoon, while closing the cafe, she found a small package taped to the door. It was from Liam. Inside was a notebook, plain, brown, with her name written in careful handwriting on the cover. Curious, she opened it. Inside were pages of his photography sketches, snapshots of the city she'd never noticed, empty streets at dawn, puddles reflecting streetlights, a stray cat stretching on a stoop. Each image was accompanied by a small note, written like a letter. "For the woman who taught me to see beauty in the unnoticed. I hope this reminds you that even when the world feels grey, you are the color that matters most." Nora felt her chest tighten. She wasn't ready to forgive fully, but she could feel the honesty in his gesture. It was the kind of patience and care that couldn't be faked. Over the next few weeks, their paths began to cross naturally. Liam would appear on the sidewalk as she left work, silently waiting with a thermos of coffee or a single rose. They walked together for blocks, talking sparingly, often letting the silence stretch comfortably between them. They didn't rush. There were no declarations, no promises made in haste. Just the quiet presence of one another. One evening, they walked to the riverside park where the first snow of the season had begun to settle in delicate flakes. Nora looked at the snow falling onto the bare branches and felt the cold seep through her gloves, and yet, inside, something was warming. "I almost forgot how peaceful it feels," she said softly. Liam glanced at her. "Peace has been hiding, hasn't it? We've been so busy surviving that we forgot how to breathe." She nodded. "Maybe that's why this feels so strange, good, but strange. Like learning to walk again after you've been running for years." He smiled gently. "Then let's walk together, slowly." As autumn gave way to winter, their reconnection deepened not through grand gestures but small, consistent ones. Liam brought soup when she was tired. She baked cookies and shared them with him after his long shifts. They discovered a quiet joy in routine: Sunday mornings for pancakes, Tuesday evening walks along the river, Wednesdays spent in bookstores where neither could resist old novels with worn covers. Nora noticed how Liam listened differently now, not just politely, but fully. When she spoke, he didn't just hear words, he heard meaning, the emotions hidden between them. And she, in turn, began to trust him again. Tentatively at first, but then more naturally. Their conversations often returned to the past, but never as accusation. "I wish I'd told you sooner," Liam said one rainy Thursday, leaning against the window of her apartment, watching the city blur under umbrellas. "You didn't," she admitted softly. "But you showed up anyway. That counts for something." "It counts for everything," he replied. The weight of those words lingered between them. It wasn't a magic fix. Trust wasn't rebuilt overnight. But each small act, a smile, a shared cup of coffee, a moment of understanding, was a brick in the foundation of something enduring. One particularly snowy morning, Nora woke to find Liam shoveling the walk outside her apartment. She pulled on a coat and boots, laughter spilling from her lips before she could stop it. "Are you insane?" she called. "I'm dedicated," he replied, snowflakes melting on his hair. "And you looked cold when you left for work last night." The absurdity of it made her laugh, and she grabbed a shovel herself, snow flying in small arcs around them. For the first time since the gallery revelation, she felt light, playful, alive. "That's the thing about snow," she said between laughs. "It covers everything, makes the world look clean again. Like a second chance." Liam smiled, eyes crinkling. "Then maybe we're getting it right this time." By the turn of the year, their connection had quietly solidified. There were still hesitations, moments where the past crept in like a shadow, but neither recoiled. Instead, they faced it together, sharing fears, talking through doubts, laughing at small mistakes. One evening, as they decorated her apartment with string lights and handmade ornaments, Liam paused to look at her. "You know," he said, softly, "I think I'm learning how to be patient. With life. With love. With you." Nora smiled, hanging a tiny paper star on the window frame. "I think I'm learning the same. Sometimes love isn't fireworks. Sometimes it's just being steady, even when it's hard." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Steady is more than enough." Weeks turned into months. Winter deepened, snow blanketing the city in quiet silver, but inside Nora's apartment, warmth grew. Their routines, shared coffee, evening walks, quiet dinners, became rituals of healing. They began volunteering together at a local shelter, discovering that generosity and patience weren't just for each other, but for the world around them. Nora found herself painting again, filling the apartment with colors and images she had almost abandoned. Liam encouraged her, hung her paintings around his studio, and often simply watched her, silently proud. One rainy night, they sat on her balcony, wrapped in blankets, listening to the rhythm of the city. "You know," Nora said softly, "I almost gave up on believing in love that wasn't perfect." "That didn't fix everything immediately." He squeezed her hand. "It doesn't have to fix everything. It just has to show up. That's what makes it real." She leaned against him, the rain tapping on the glass behind them. "Then I think we're finally getting it right." And for the first time since the gallery incident, she believed it. Not because life had suddenly become perfect, but because they had learned the quiet power of presence, honesty, and patience. If this story reminds you that healing, forgiveness, and real love aren't about grand gestures, but about showing up every day, even when it's difficult, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to our channel. Because sometimes, the strongest love is the one built in silence, slowly, and with care. If you believe that true love is both a journey and a choice, not just a feeling, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who has ever been afraid to trust again, and subscribe to our channel. Because tonight, we witness a story where patience, honesty, and quiet courage lead to the love we've all been waiting for. Winter had softened into early spring. The city awoke slowly from its icy sleep, and with it, Nora's world felt like it was blooming again. Every morning brought sunlight that filtered through her apartment blinds, painting soft stripes on the walls. Every evening brought Liam's laughter echoing in the kitchen, or his hand brushing hers as they walked along the river, where snowmelt ran in tiny silver streams. They had built something stronger than infatuation, stronger than the fragile thrill of new love. They had built trust. And yet, life has a way of testing even the strongest foundations. One morning, Nora received a call from the hospital administration. They were facing budget cuts and had to reduce staff. Her position was at risk. Her heart sank. After all the progress she had made, after the months of quiet healing, this felt like a cruel reminder that life could still turn upside down without warning. She considered not telling Liam, wanting to bear the burden alone. But when she saw him waiting outside her apartment that evening with a bouquet of daffodils, bright, hopeful, smiling, she knew she couldn't hide it. Something happened at work, she admitted as he handed her the flowers. He listened without interruption, eyes steady, hands warm around hers. "We'll figure this out," he said simply. "Not tomorrow. Not later. Together." For the first time, Nora realized that the love they had rebuilt wasn't just comforting, it was a shield. Not because it could stop hardship, but because it made facing it together possible. That night, they sat by the river, wrapped in blankets Liam had brought, listening to the faint hum of the city. "You know," he said softly, "I've been thinking about the future." She raised her eyebrows. "Dangerous territory." He laughed, a sound that always made her chest warm. "Not dangerous. Honest. I want us to have a future that's ours. Real, messy, beautiful." She studied him, suddenly nervous. "Are you talking about forever?" "Yes," he said, leaning closer. "But not with a grand proposal or a ring yet. I want to promise something else first, presence. Every day. Honesty. Patience. Laughter. Trust. The small, ordinary things that actually make life extraordinary." Her eyes filled with tears, but she smiled. "Then I'll promise the same. Even when it's hard. Even when we stumble." And so, under the soft glow of the city lights, they made a promise. Not flashy. Not instant. But steady. The kind of promise that would weather storms. Over the next few months, Nora threw herself into a new opportunity. A small wellness clinic had opened nearby, looking for someone with her experience and compassion. She applied, interviewed, and was hired. It wasn't a glamorous position, nor did it make her rich. But it gave her purpose, stability, and pride. She felt alive again, not just surviving, but thriving. Liam was there for every step. Not as a crutch, not as a rescuer, but as a partner. He celebrated her small victories, helped her unwind after long days, and reminded her constantly that she was enough. And she, in turn, continued to encourage him. He began hosting free photography workshops for neighborhood kids, teaching them to see beauty in the overlooked, the cracked walls, the puddles, the simple street corners. Watching him work, she felt admiration, deep and steady, that had nothing to do with romance and everything to do with respect. Spring fully arrived. One Sunday afternoon, they returned to the riverside park where their love had quietly blossomed. Daffodils bloomed along the edge, mirroring the first ones Liam had brought after her setback at work. He handed her a small box, not extravagant, just simple, silver, and elegant. "This is to mark something we've already begun," he said, voice gentle. "Not a beginning, not an ending, a promise, a symbol. Of growth, of trust, of every ordinary day we choose to show up for each other." Inside the box was a delicate silver bracelet, engraved with a single word, presence. Tears pooled in her eyes. "It's perfect," she whispered. "Not perfect," he said, smiling. "Just real. Just us." She slid it onto her wrist, feeling its weight as a reminder, love isn't always dramatic. It's the steady heartbeat beside you when the world gets heavy. Together, they began to dream again. Not about grand houses or expensive trips, but about building a life that mattered. They volunteered, they created, they laughed and fought and forgave. Nora opened her own small studio 1 month later, a place where people could come to heal through art. She called it the light beneath the rain. Liam helped her set up, photographing the opening exhibit, capturing the first smiles of visitors as they walked in. The studio became a sanctuary for those who felt unseen, overlooked, or too weary to hope. Just like Nora had once been. And in the quiet corners, Liam was always there, steady, supportive, present. Winter's first snowfall returned that year, and they walked hand in hand through the city streets, footprints fading behind them. The air was crisp, the streetlights reflecting in frozen puddles, the world hushed as if watching. "I never believed I'd find this," Nora said softly, leaning her head on his shoulder. "Find what?" Liam asked. "This, us. Real, steady, true." He kissed the top of her head. "It was always here. We just had to learn how to see it." They paused by the riverside, snowflakes melting on their coats. In that stillness, Nora realized that life had never been about grand gestures or instant perfection. It had been about showing up, patiently, quietly, every single day. And now, finally, they could see it together. If this story has touched your heart tonight, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to our channel. Because Nora and Liam's journey reminds us that true love isn't found in perfection, but in presence, honesty, and the courage to keep walking through the rain, side by side.